Okay. Well, this is a very interesting subject, ladies and gentlemen. We are not going to get in what we call in the weeds because this thing goes very, very deep. The purpose of tonight to show you the vehicle that you need to use here that the federal government and the states have given us, to go ahead and keep and generate even more wealth. So that's the purpose here. You'll see on the screen there, federal capital gains 20%, and in California it could be another 13.3 depending on what tax bracket that you're in. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here, and go ahead. There we go. Okay, so on the 1031s, there's 4 types of exchanges here. Okay, so let's go over the first ones here. One is a simultaneous exchange. This is when the property you're selling and the property that you're buying closes on the same day. That hardly ever happens, okay, but it is possible, and that's why they have it that way. Okay, next one is a delayed exchange. This is the most common. It's when you close escrow on your property that you're selling, but you've not identified the property that you're buying yet. Okay, and what you do on that is you have 45 days from the date your property that you're selling closes escrow to identify the property you're buying, and then you must close 135 days after that for a total of 180 days from the date your property that you sold closed escrow. Okay, if you go past that 180 days, you trigger capital gain, even if it's only 1 day. It doesn't matter with IRS, okay? Next one is reverse exchange, just kind of opposite. It's similar to the delayed. However, it's when you acquire your replacement property before you have sold your current property. Same rules apply. The 45 days, the 135, and the 180 days, it all comes together, just in reverse. Okay, and then the last one here is an improvement exchange. This is where you can do improvements that allows you to make it on the replacement property prior to the final acquisition. I've actually done this, okay, on one of my properties, in fact, several times. So those are the 4 types of 1031s that you can actually, use. Now, same 45 to 180 days on that as well. But our focus tonight is going to be mainly on the delayed exchange. That's what most people use. And what you're going to need to have what I call a successful, non-stressful exchange. Okay. It's very important that you have all your ducks in line before you start putting your house on the market, and selling it. Okay. You're going to need a CPA. You're going to need a qualified intermediary. That's kind of like a facilitator. I normally use First American Title because they've been around for 30, 40 years. And a lot of questions that we get is, how do I know my money's going to be there? Well, if you go with a quality company, you're going to go ahead and be able to do that. Okay. Next is on the, my screen, like, okay, real estate broker. Okay. Like Tyler and Chrisia, they're very familiar with the exchanges. And they can also put you in touch with the other people that you're going to need to have. Sometimes you'll need a financial advisor, depending on how complex, it is with your portfolio. Okay. And then also a real estate attorney in some cases as well. Just depends on how detailed it is. If you're moving a lot of properties around, then we're going to need more people involved as far as to take care of this. The good thing about it is your real estate agent or broker, you're only paying them if you're selling a property on the commission, but you don't pay them any extra. So they can organize all this for you. Okay. And for an example, the house that you're looking at buying, they're going to have you pre-qualified. I mean, fully qualified, not just a pre-qual letter, but fully qualified. Know you can buy that house you're looking at before we ever put the house on the market to sell it. Okay. We want that all done. Okay. So there's no, chances that you would knock yourself out of the exchange. Okay, what is needed for 1031? Your replacement property needs to be equal or greater than the value of the property that you're selling. Okay, you got to identify it within 45 days. And I know some of this we're repeating, but it's worth repeating, okay, because it sometimes takes a while to get accustomed to it. and then you must conclude it within 180 days. So that's what you need as far as for the 1031. Now, why do a 1031 exchange? Everybody says, oh, that's too complicated. Well, when I'm done here, you'll probably think that maybe it's not that complicated because of the money that you're going to save. Number one, you can avoid the 20% capital gains on the federal and some state taxes. Like California, you have, state taxes. Florida, there's no state tax. Nevada, there's no state tax. Okay. If there is in Texas, there's no state tax. So there's a lot of places, that don't have state tax. There's actually 10 states in the United States where you have no state tax. Okay. Second reason is you can also avoid recapture and depreciation. And I don't want to get too complicated here, but when you have a rental property, your CPA or accountant depreciates that property. That's why you're able to have some tax savings of $2,000 to $3,000 a year. Okay. When you go to sell that property, you have to recapture that. Okay. So not only do you have the gain of what you bought it for to what it went up, but you also have to recapture some of that depreciation. The other thing of it is this is an example. Okay. So what I did is I took a property I bought in 1977 when I was 12 years old for a little over $100,000. Okay. Okay. Just joking there. Okay. So 100,000. Okay. And I made these numbers simple so we could navigate and understand this more easily. Today, it would sell for over 800,000, probably a little bit more. Okay. So that means I'd have a $700,000 gain. So just on federal taxes alone, I'd owe $140,000. Okay. Okay. Then if we go to California tax, unfortunately, I'm in the highest bracket, so I'd pay another 93 grand, okay, as far as in state tax. So if we add those two together, that's a total of $233,000 it's going to cost you, or in this case, me, unfortunately, if I did an outright sale. So you can see it is significant, okay? But there's more to it than just this. Not only are you going to give the 233 back to the government, which I'd like to ask everybody on the call tonight, who can manage your money best, the government or you? And I think I know the answer to that question, right? Okay, or your kids. If you don't do it for you, then do it for your kids or your kids' kids. Mm-hmm. Okay, and you're going to see what I'm talking about right here, because we talk a lot about generational wealth today. Okay, so let me go to the next line here. Here's the second leg of why to do an exchange. Okay, you got to 233. So now the fact that you didn't pay that money to the government, what could you do with that? And I'll ask Tyler and Chrissy, could we buy a $700,000 home and put $233,000 down?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now instead of giving this 233 back, now we took the 233,000, put it down on a $700,000 house. So now we leveraged that 233 at 700,000. And if the appreciation rate is 20%, we're going to make 140 grand a year on that new $700,000 purchase on money you would have never had. And you're going to make that, even if you only make 10% a year, that's 70,000 a year. And that's not uncommon in California. And we all know that. Mm-hmm. So I hope you're all with me. This is the second leg of why you do an exchange. Okay. The next thing of it is you can build your wealth faster when you do these 1031 exchanges. Okay. Some people say, well, I'm 50 years old and, I don't have the time that I would have if I'd have started in my 20s. To be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, if you use some of the vehicles that's available to us in investing, you can pick up years. Okay. Because how long would it take you to save 233,000? First of all, you're going to have to make more than 233,000, because if you're in a 30% federal and 10% state, that's 40% they're going to take out of your paycheck. So in order to get that, you're going to have to make 400,000 or 500,000 even to put 233 in the bank after taxes. So that's what we got to look at. How hard is it to get that back into my bank account? The next thing of it is, and you can leave more money for your kids than the government would have gotten. And the thing of it is, one of the biggest, things I think we can give our children is not only just give them money, that doesn't do a lot, but if you give them money and knowledge, look what they can do with it. Because if you're doing this, then you will hand it down and say, look, if we go ahead and you do a sale of a property, you have to consider a 1031 first. Okay. All right. So the last thing of it is like I say, increase generational wealth for your kids and their kids. And it just keeps going on. So if you look at this over a 40, 50, 80-year period of time, you're talking not hundreds of thousands, you're talking about millions of dollars, that you can create in your legacy for your kids and your kids' kids, and along the way, you can go ahead and enjoy it as well. Okay, so some questions that we get on 1031 exchanges, okay, is can I live in my 1031 exchange property? And the answer is yes. If a property is being acquired through a 1031 exchange, it is later converted into primary residence, as you see on the screen there, you must hold it for at least, no less than 5 years, okay? For otherwise the sale is going to be fully taxable. So, and again, I caution this a little bit of making an exchange property when you're living in, because it does raise red flags, okay? So we recommend that you keep it arm's length, and everybody will tell you that does any kind of exchanges in the world. Okay, what's the cost of an exchange? Okay, basically the accommodator, your facilitator, your intermediary, there's several names they call these people or these companies, about $1,000, but they make interest on your money until it goes into the property you're buying. Okay, and so with that, they're making a little bit of extra cash as far as on theirs as well. Okay, can you do an exchange with a family member? The answer is yes. However, this is a major red flag with the IRS. Okay, my recommendation is don't do it. There's special rules, that you got to be followed, and it just creates a lot of red flags. And why put yourself through it? Now the question is, can I sell one property and buy 3 more? The answer is yes, as long as you meet the requirements of the exchange. Okay, you've got certain dollar amounts, certain monies have to go in, and the values and everything. And this is a much too short of a webinar to get in to the details and into the weeds, as I call it. But we're more than happy to have this conversation with you, and Chrissy and Tyler would be more than happy to have a phone call as far as with you, as far as on that. Okay, another question is, can I sell a single family home and buy a 4-plex? Okay, the answer is yes, because it's considered a like for like exchange. What does that mean? It means that income property has to be another income property, but it doesn't have to be a single family for a single family. Okay, it can be a single family for a duplex or 4-plex. You can commercial, or you can go from commercial back to single family. You can do that as well. Okay, so don't get hung up on it. It's like for like means single family for single family. No, it's income producing property for income producing property. Okay, that's what they mean like for like. Okay, now, so what we're going to talk about is an actual case on one of my properties that I had. It was the office industrial complex I had for 30 years. Okay, on that. And basically, I bought the property for about $580,000. Okay, and then sold it as far as for $2.5 million. But it's actually more than that, because over those years, it paid itself off, and we brought in about another $2.5 million in cash. So basically, on an investment of 580, it brought in about $5 million over a 30-year period. Okay, so when I sold this, it was stipulated in the listing that it would be involved in a 1031 exchange. Okay, and that's important that that information is in there when you go ahead and sell the property, that you're going to be selling in the exchange. Okay, so one thing I did, I purchased a commercial building. It's much like a Walgreens you would see would be in it, and then they would lease from me, and what we call a triple net lease. So that's one. So you can see here, I went from an office industrial into a commercial. Okay, and then I bought 2 new single family homes, all cash as far as with this. And so that completed the exchange. Now, the reason, as I said earlier, you want to make sure you're working with somebody that's very competent, knows what they're doing, so you don't have any slip ups, okay? Because by doing this, instead of selling outright, I saved $500,000 in capital gains tax. Okay, $500,000. Okay, and now I was able to go into more investments. Okay, because I didn't just go and give that money back as far as, you know, to the government. So now people say, well, when does this ever end? How about when do I get to cash out? Well, basically, and I'm going to use myself as an example. Basically, you know, I don't plan on cashing out. What I will do is keep buying properties, leveraging them out. But if I want to pull, let's say I want to do something in my life personally, and I want to pull out $100,000 to do that, I can go ahead and take a mortgage on this, pull the money out, and with the extra cash flow I'm getting because we're raising rents, it would make the payment on that 100,000, and I'm not taxed on the 100 grand either. Okay, if you do an exchange or you pull money out, you don't get taxed. You get taxed when you sell. That's what triggers the capital gains. Okay, and so, you know, another step on this is with your children. Okay, basically this is how it works. So somebody doesn't have to pay the gain. So let me give you an example. So if I sold this property a day before I pass away, and I don't plan on doing that anytime soon, Tyler, okay? But if I would do that, I could end up maybe $1 million that I would owe in capital gains tax, okay? But instead of doing that, I don't sell, I pass away tomorrow, and the day after that, Tyler sells it, okay? Okay, now that'd be a little quick, Tyler, so you might want to wait a couple days. Okay, but okay, maybe after the funeral. Okay, maybe. But what I'm saying here is if he sells it, what happens with this, Tyler and your siblings too, we get a stepped up basis. What that means is that $1 million that I would have paid if I sold it the day before I die, if Tyler sells it the day after I die, he pays no gain.
Right.
It wipes out all that gain. Okay, so now Tyler can go ahead and he can use it to whatever, buy whatever he wants to buy more real estate if he wants to sell. Okay, so I recommend this. So once, you know, I'm saying we, like all of us, except the children, okay, but once you pass away, I do recommend that the siblings make sure that they get an appraisal on every single piece of real estate that you have within 90, no more than 180 days. Because here's what happens. Let's say Tyler doesn't sell, okay? And 10 years from now, he decides to sell it, okay? And now it's worth, let's say, $4 million. But IRS comes in and says, no. It wasn't worth $2.5 million. It was only worth 1.5. So now they're going to tax Tyler, you know, another $1.5 million, okay? Compared to if he had had a bona fide appraisal done, it would have protected him. Okay, now you might spend $1,000 for every appraisal, or sometimes on a commercial property, $4,000 or $5,000. But let me tell you, it's the best money your kids can ever, you know, spend to make sure they don't get hit with major taxes as far as down the road. So really, really important from that standpoint. Okay, and here, of course, we have all the resources. You know, we literally can save people hundreds of thousands in capital gains, and you can create your own wealth, okay, by doing this. So the beauty with us here with Management One, with Chrissia and Tyler, and all the resources we have, you know, put together, really just a matter of setting down, making sure we have all our ducks in line with you, and then we go ahead and, you know, put the properties on the market. And everybody's going to be a little bit different. You know, people say, well, can I pull some money out in the exchange? You can, but it's considered what we call boot, like a boot, B-O-O-T. Okay, it's a little acronym they have that, but it's boot, and then but you would have to pay tax. So it gets a little tricky in there, but it is possible. You know, and your combinator, you know, they would go ahead and work with you as far as on that. They'll let you know what you can and cannot do as far as on that end of it, along with your real estate attorney. So with that said, we'll open it up for a few questions here.
We do have some. Ron, can you do a 1031 exchange if you have a trust or an LLC?
Mhm. Yeah, you can do it. I mean, it's real estate is real estate, you know, how it's held in title is not the situation there.
Okay. And then another question we have is, what is the benefit of doing a 1031 exchange? Why not just keep the property you have and then buy more?
You can, but there may be certain times that, you know, in your life that, you know, maybe you're moving away from that area and you want to sell it, or maybe the area, in my case, I felt the area itself was losing, you know, some value on where I had my office industrial. After I had it for so many years, I didn't like the way the city was going, the neighborhood was going. And it was an opportune time, and I sold it right at the peak there, and was able to move that capital into another investment. But you can do either or. But those are a couple of the reasons that you would want to do, you know, a 1031 exchange. Okay.